This is Maggie Alonso Glacia representing Bayer Healthcare Systems out of San Francisco. And Maggie has a really very interesting career path, and so she brings a really wonderful perspective to dealing with job searches in both academia and industry that would be relevant both to sort of the mentees and mentors in the room, either helping people kind of navigate that, giving advice to your mentees, or yourself looking for changing positions or a difficult job search. So we thank you, Maggie, for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And what I like to do is basically go over, how can we as scientists be resilient during a difficult either job search, but this also applies to, difficulties getting funding, difficulties getting, along with people. We all work with, different personalities, and how to adjust to that, and how your experiences build up and actually help you build resilience. So just a little background about myself. I'm a cardiovascular and renal physiologist. I actually trained at University of Mississippi in Jackson. And my passion always has been science and helping people get better patients. So that's, since I was a child, that was my passion. And I was really, very blessed to have the opportunity to train in Dr. Guyton's department. So that was a really highlight of my life when I got accepted to work in that department of physiology with Dr. Guyton. And what I'd like to do first is, we are getting a lot of physiologists, PhD trainees out there. There's a lot of us PhD holders that have finished our PhD postdocs, and then we are faced with the question whether do we stay in academia or do we work somewhere else. So I'd like to start first with some facts. And actually, this is information that Erica sent around, some just stats. What are the employment trends nowadays? I do know when I got accepted into the PhD program, I was going to work in academia. I just want to be like my mentors. Dr. Hall, John Hall was my mentor, and I just want to be like him and like Dr. Guyton. Getting grants, teaching, that was my goal. And that is the goal for, I guess, most of the STEM PhD students. That's what they plan to do when they get accepted into PhD programs. What a recent survey, and I guess this was really interesting, it was just published in 2014. They studied all the PhD holders that got their degree between 1959 and 2010. And just charter or find out where are they now, what are they doing. And what they found is that of the biological sciences PhD, 52% are actually employed currently in non-academic careers. And this was in 2010. And the majority of them also listed research and development or discovery as their main work activity. So I guess that reflects that we as scientists, we really like to be involved in some sort of research activity, but we cannot always find that in academia. So something is really happening currently. So this graph was really interesting for me because, even though it's really busy, it's separated by the PhD holders that work in non-academic institutions, all of this, and separated by career sector and gender, racial, and ethnic groups. But the yellow line is what is outstanding, and it's like a majority of people working in non-academic institutions actually are employed currently at private for-profit organizations. And the next big area is actually government. A lot of PhD holders are currently employed in government. So those are the most popular non-academic careers that I found, but a lot of people are also, of course, working in nonprofit organizations and are also self-employed. So Just briefly, why is this? And I think I don't need to go over this with you. You pretty much know what are the reasons for people seeking non-academic positions. And I guess it's because of the academic job market really has tightened, especially for the last, probably 10 years. And part of the reason is that it takes a long time, really, to go from your PhD all the way to your postdoc and be ready to enter the job market. For many STEM academic appointments, it really takes multiple postdocs that we all know they all pay very low salaries. And funding to get your research going also is increasingly more difficult to obtain, and of course, less tenure or tenure track positions available. All that has contributed to PhD scientists to find other positions. I think also the research interests are changing. Instead of pure, concentrated on pure academic endeavors, just for, because you enjoy doing science, the burden of chronic diseases in our society is different, and probably that has changed a little bit more of the funding trends as well, and that's where we find that some areas are extremely well funded for research, some other areas are just not, and it's almost impossible to get a grant. And the other thing is that I think especially for millennials, the younger generations, the appeal of non-academic settings is actually there. They were raised in slightly different conditions, I would say. So location, people would like to work in different locations. They would like probably other job functions than just purely staying in the lab, or the benefits. So there are multiple reasons for that. So what of the four career sectors that I mentioned where there are the non-academic positions, the one that I know better is the pharmaceutical industry. After my postdoc, I was recruited to work for Merck. And I have been working in the industry for about 15 years. So what I like to do is kind of describe, how I got there and what kind of, events that happened during, after I got into Merck that actually helped me build resilience and how to help me find my next position and actually end up with the position that I have now. So, of course, a lot of people think that, well, the academic job market is, pretty bad, and it's hard to move along. Of course, it can be done, but it's, really hard. So, other alternatives, how is the job market in the pharmaceutical industry? Well, the thing is, there's good news and bad news, as anything. We all know that pharma has eliminated thousands, tens of thousands of jobs since the recession hit in 2008. Before, probably 2005, it was relatively easy to get into the pharmaceutical industry. Nowadays, it's not. Granted, the pace of downsizing has slowed down. I mean, you see it all on the news. However, the industry is consolidating. Big pharma is buying or gobbling up the small biotechs or mid-sized companies. And this consolidation, of course, creates many redundancies in the job functions within these companies, and that leads to more layoffs and less opportunities for trainees to get in. What has happened is because of companies are switching their focus on which disease areas they concentrate, there is only selective hiring of certain skills and of certain expertise, scientific expertise. And the outsourcing trend, everybody knows about it, is also a big thing because some of the job functions are actually outsourced to other countries. And it's all about cost savings, as well as the constant reorganization that happens internally with all of these changes. So it's not that easy, really, to get into pharma and learn the ropes. And then the other thing is, in the US at least, is that where you can find job is actually located in certain regions of the country. And I would say the Northeast is one area where you find a concentration of companies that might have openings. You also have California, the southern and northern, the Bay Area, as well as the Boston area, with lots of small, medium, and large companies just located in these, what they call, science hubs. Or what you can see here is that it doesn't matter where you look, it's actually going to be difficult to find an academic or a non-academic job. It's going to be difficult. There's no doubt about it. So the best thing, I guess, is just to start building your resilience. And that is possible. It doesn't matter. I guess the previous speakers, they all described really well what you can do to become resilient. What are the characteristics of resilient people? What I like to do here is just to give you a little bit more specific of actions you can take when really looking for a job that is going to be difficult to find. And I just recently went through that. I have been laid off twice, different companies for different reasons, and I will go through and I will show you, explain to you a little bit, the lessons learned about the change that you just cannot do anything about it. It just will happen. So what I like here to remind you is that our current work environment, anywhere you work, is characterized by constant change and ambiguity. Doesn't matter where you work. That's the new normal. And resilience is really key. It's a key capability for remaining, so that we can remain effective, and allow us to go beyond survival. Not just like, okay, I'm just surviving here, but actually prosper in those environments that are really complex and dynamic. So this is my favorite definition of resilience, which I actually got from, when they lay you off, they give you an opportunity to have, assistance for job opportunities. And Lehigh Harrison is a company that actually helps people in transition find, resilience and give you a little bit of guidance on what to do to find your next job opportunity. So I was really blessed with that. So I like the definition that resilience is the capacity to remain both flexible and strong in the midst of uncertainty and change. So what I like to go now is just to give you three steps, actions that you can do to build your personal resilience while looking for a job. And like we have all talked about, all speakers, about understanding yourself and what you want to do. You have to know the territory. You have to know the area or that job that you really will love to do. You really have to know the territory, but you also need to know how to connect to resources to help you take action. And so that's what we're going to do in the next few slides to help you, really be resilient during a difficult job search. So first of all, understand yourself. We all talked about it. You really have to develop from very early on your own personal and professional life plan. But not just like imagine it. You actually have to start identifying first steps. And you really have to be proactive on actually writing it down and not just dream about it. What I found also in common that all of us say, you have to seek input from mentors or from people you trust. And you really need these when you are going on a difficult job search, like I went through. You really need that support group and somebody you can really talk about your fears, your goals, but actually to help you understand your strengths, to how they view you, what you bring to the table, what are your strengths, but also what are your weaknesses. You need somebody to tell you that. And you also have to keep, tabs on your accomplishments. And this is something we don't know, but I think Karin said that you really have to have that folder, motivational folder that you keep, when people talk about good things about you or what you did, you have to keep track of that. Those are your accomplishments, not just on what you did, but how you did it, how effectively you did it. and put all those together and really define your personal mission statement. What do you want to do with your career, and what do you want to do with your life? And for all that is great information to update your CV, like Jennifer was saying, that always has to be up to date and really reflect what you want to do and be the document that is going to sell yourself to a potential employer. The other thing is attitude. When you're going through a difficult job search, really what you want to do is be very optimistic. You have to be receptive and flexible. And that is really crucial to keep you, effective during a difficult job search. It can be very depressing to just be sending, applications, hundreds and hundreds of applications online. They go into the black hole and you never hear anything. That is really depressing. But what you can do is really stay positive, just focus on the positive things and count your blessings. So every time that you feel like depressed, just go back to that folder. And not just that, but also, look at where you are now. You are highly educated. You do have a lot of skills that you have learned through your, professional career, getting your PhD, getting your postdoc. You really are in a good place, and you know that something good will eventually come out. You just have to hang on. The very hard part is that you don't know how long will it take you. And that can really, bring, there are ups and downs, but you really have to stay positive on that. So the other thing is that we can all learn from people that we know are resilient. And for me, that was really helpful, just to see how people have gone through exactly the same situation, be in a worse economical situation than me, and still they were very positive. So because I work in an industry in which change is constant and layoffs are continuously going on, many of my colleagues have gone through these, phases of layoffs and then being hired and then being let go again. And I actually learned a lot from some of my ex-colleagues. And I'm sure you can find people the same way, where there is, grant funding, people that keep submitting and they keep rejecting over and over again, or people keep applying for positions at different institutions and you just cannot get them. I'm sure you can learn from their experiences. So always, try to network with them, at least reach out to them. And you never know. Networking, again, is a big thing that you have to just do it continuously. And, you just ask them about how they approach stressful situations. The other thing, Karen talked about it, is your physical and emotional health. You really have to pay attention to your overall well-being, exercise, eating right. That is really key. Use the stress reduction techniques. I think that worked really well for me. Yoga and, of course, walking. Perfect activities. And the other thing that really helps me, it's mentoring. So I love mentoring students, but also my ex-colleagues going through, difficult situations. So paying it forward is just probably the best way that you can feel good about yourself. And you never know. Your next job might actually come from somebody that you help in that situation. And it just feels really good. The other thing is knowing the territory, the big picture. You really have to know the big picture. Where do you want to go in your career? You have to have that really well if you want to work in government, if you want to work in the pharmaceutical industry or any other industry. You have to gather the appropriate information. Job trends, what kind of skills are needed to get into that type of industry. You really need to learn how to use LinkedIn effectively. That is a really great opportunity for networking into the new industry you want to get in. But also you have to get out there and actually join professional organizations that work closely in the area that you want to work. This works best probably for the pharmaceutical industry, and that's how you start actually breaking into the field. And that is the starting point for building your network. If you work in academia and want to get in industry, just join a professional organization. For me, I guess working for the New York Academy of Sciences, so all that is volunteer work, basically organizing and coming up with meeting ideas and actually organizing meetings for scientists working in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, all kind of work together, really helped me during my job search to be relevant to my peers so they wouldn't forget about me, and to keep me involved, with students. The New York Academy of Science is a beautiful place in Lower Manhattan, where a lot of students from the area, the New York area, come just to learn about science. And it's a beautiful setting, but it gives you the opportunity to give back. But also it's a great networking opportunity. Many people from Big Pharma attend those meetings. So just be wise in selecting your professional organization or discussion group. The other one is knowledge of competencies. What are the skills, the career skills that will be most valued in your field of interest for the future? And that's where you use your mentor or mentors. Sometimes you need 2 or 3, like Howard was saying. And that is up to you to really, if you really want that job, you really have to go and ask, what are the skills that I need to get and work on? And the easiest thing to do is actually volunteering, again, for an organization. And of course, you have to plan your career, but your life, most importantly, and really know how to organize it, how to follow up on it, and how to set short-term and long-term goals that actually are going to get you to where you want to be, doing a job that you love and actually working with people that you like. And finally, connecting to resources. And you all know these, by now we have talked a lot of it. Personal support. I hope that you really find that network. For me, it was my friends that I have developed from grad school and my academic life, but also from my ex-colleagues. They were critical for me to be able to go through a long period of time on finding my next job. That actually took 9 months, finding a next job. And also, where do you find the resources? And knowledge of resources. So, keeping you well informed and of the resources that we need, and participating, keeping you relevant. So what are you going to do, the actions that you're going to do when you are faced with a difficult job search? Well, you can ask yourself several questions. You can go through all these. And this one really help you see yourself in the future. Where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing in 6 months? What are you going to be doing in 5 years and 10 years? So that will be the short term, 6 months, what can I do? But then eventually where I want to be in 10 years. And does that fit with my life? Whether you're in a relationship, you're planning to have kids, or you want to get married, have to really be able to think about that. And also, what are you willing to give up to achieve your dream? And is it really worth it going through those very stressful times? You really have to think about that, and how much are you willing to risk? I think that's basically the question, how much you want to, take. How much beating do you want to take? So do these, but actually treat your career search as a project, as, with the same, enthusiasm that you do science, and like, yes, I'm going to do this experiment, this is what I'm going to get. Do it yourself with your career and, for your next job. So the short-term goals, there are many classes out there online, different, institutions, in your institutions, to help you plan, make basically career planning. and actually having a mentor or somebody to help you go through and make you accountable for following up on your plan is actually critical. Otherwise, you won't do it, and I'm guilty of that. Until I have somebody that is actually checking on me, I procrastinate. And for your long-range goals, you have to start building your network in the new area you want to be, or in the area that you already are in academia. You have to build your network. And I guess for me, the most critical is the career mentor. Like Howard was saying, that is critical to find that advocate, mentor for you that's going to give you good advice and help you be better. So just some final thoughts on your action plan. And the best advice that I can give you is that you really have to invest time now to really plan those actions. Don't wait until, okay, I'll just wait until I finish my postdoc and decide. No. You have to do it as soon as possible. If you are at the undergrad level or just entering grad school, that is probably the best time to help you decide which way you want to go. Invest that time now, because the job market is only going to get worse. Less positions, more selective hiring, very specialized skills, and you really need to know as soon as possible. So I just want to finish with, how my career path has been. And so far, my career path looks like Lombard Street in San Francisco. And I just moved to San Francisco. So again, what I wanted to do, what I really love, is physiology. And mostly cardiovascular and renal physiology, probably because cardiovascular disease runs in my family, and I've seen the devastating effects of that. So it, of course, started with my bachelor's degree in Mexico, in a small university in central Mexico, where I had no idea what research was, really no idea. They don't give you those opportunities there. But I was lucky enough to find a job as a technician in the Department of Physiology at the local medical school, and that's where I really learned about the work of Dr. Guyton. And this is where you start building your network, and now how one decision leads to another. My boss at the time was an admirer of Dr. Guyton. The book was used at the medical school to teach physiology. And he just said, well, I really like science. I did not understand at all. I was just doing experiments. I did not understand renal physiology, but I wanted to learn more. He said, well, if you want to go with the best, you just apply to the best schools. And I did. And I was actually lucky enough to get into the University of Mississippi, get my PhD in physiology. Dr. John Hall was my advisor, and he was a great mentor. And basically, the University of Mississippi, that group is the foundation of my network. I did work in hypertension and obesity, and that got me to a great start as an integrative whole animal physiologist. What I needed then, and it was because John Hall told me, is you need to expand your skills, do different type of work, either in vitro, ex vivo, cellular assays, or genetics. So that's the reason I went to the Medical College of Wisconsin with Dr. Roman, and to continue working in the hypertension area, more towards the genetics of salt sensitivity, but also with, more vascular type of mechanisms of hypertension, especially renal hypertension. Because of my training as an integrative physiologist, and the contacts that the Medical College of Wisconsin had with Merck, in particular Howard Jacob, had a big collaboration with Merck. That just, exposed me to, as an option for my career after finishing my postdoc, to either go into industry or, of course, to go into an academia. And I did try, because that was what I wanted to do, to be, an assistant professor and start my academic career. However, what really got me about, deciding about a job in industry was, my desire to help patients. And at that time, I really felt that doing this type of applied research, a little bit more focused on a particular disease area would actually help me, with that type of dream that I have. That's what I went to Merck. Worked there for almost 10 years in the hypertension, heart failure area, mostly hypertension. However, companies, yes, they do help patients. Yes, they do help bring, treatments for people, but they're about the money, right? And when there is need to shuffle resources to another areas, they do have layoffs and cost, cutting, saving actions. And that's what happened to me. I got laid off from Merck in 2009. And that was the first exposure of me to, okay, what do I do? How do I find my next job? Again, it was my network. A colleague, an ex-colleague of mine, Sylvia Pomposiello, which I actually met here at EB, that hired me to work in the kidney group at Boehringer Ingelheim. And it's all through your network and your expertise. I actually didn't work too long there because during the process of looking for another job, it became evident that my skills were required in a different area, actually early clinical development. And that's what I quickly moved into Forest and out of the discovery area, and to learn new skills, a new therapeutic area, and to increase my network, getting more into the more advanced drug development process. However, Forest, a mid-sized company, last year got acquired by a large generics company, Actavis, and back again, I was laid off. So, multiple rounds of layoff. Until finally find a job 9 months later at Bayer, and again through my network. Somebody that I actually work at Boehringer Ingelheim, a really wonderful manager, great cardiovascular physiologist as well, and that is now working in a different area, and that is hematology. So that's what I'll be doing. Again, I will be dealing with the cardiovascular complications that people with hematological diseases get. And what I don't know is where I end up next, but, I will let you know. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and any questions?